again, everyone. And congratulations, we are at the end. I think before we go any further, we need to thank the organizing team, both, not just the team in IFF and the Blockchain Initiative, but the marketing team, the administrative team, the audiovisual team. I think they did an absolutely fantastic job of organization, and I think they deserve a round of applause. I'm going to do a little bit, I'm not going to talk very long now. I'd just like to talk a little bit about some things happening in the coming weeks, months, and year over the next 12-month cycle. Different ways we might see you again or work with you again. And I'll try and keep it moving quickly. The first and most immediate, we have 5 spots left for the Ethereum Solidity Bootcamp that is happening on Monday and Tuesday here in Athens. If you want to sign up, it is at dts.decentralized.com. And so there are only 5 spots left, and I think it's 15% off for students. Second, in January and February, we are kicking off another round of both our MOOC, which I will co-teach with Andreas Antonopoulos. As always, it is free. As always, it covers both basic technical matters about how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchains work, plus also some more theoretical and practical matters about what implications this has in finance, in regulatory affairs, in governmental affairs, and in innovation. You can sign up for the MOOC at digitalcurrency.unic.ac.cy. And I encourage you to share this with your colleagues, share this with your friends, share this with your family. It's really been a super experience, I think, for us and for the participants. 30,000 people have gone through. It has the highest completion rate of any MOOC I have ever heard of, which I think reflects the engagement of the participants in the MOOC and their interest in the topic, and a huge number of the people that are now in our community, that are here in this conference, that are going to be part of the broader network, really came from the MOOC. And we want to keep reaching out to people that way. It's a great tool to get to a basic level of understanding that allows them to have the more sophisticated discussions that are needed for any of this to go forward. For those who are looking for a more complete educational experience, we are also enrolling again this spring for the Masters in Digital Currency. I think it is the best academic program in the world for this topical area. It has 2 degree tracks, one that is more business managerial in nature, and one that is more technical development in nature. If you're thinking to yourself, I have a job, I'm 30 years old, I'm 40 years old, I'm busy, it's not for me, you are exactly the profile of the average student in this program. The average student in this program is actually 30 to 50 years old. They are working in a wide variety of fields. They are working in traditional finance, in traditional manufacturing, in technology. They work for governments. They work for security regulators. They work for central banks. They work in the wide spectrum of traditional fields on the whole. And then there's another chunk, maybe 20, 30%, that you might be more of what you've expected, that are entrepreneurs or more tech-oriented. And so you have the full spectrum in this program. It leads to an amazing mix of students. They're the most mature advanced students we have in any program, right? Like, I teach a class in that program where one of the class assessment tools is they have to do a project, and they have to then present a project, and it's a financial class, and so someone did a project on a certain type of fund that they wanted to make, and they submitted their video. You have to submit a video of presenting what their project was, and they submitted a video and was describing the project. But the video they submitted was them presenting to 700 fund managers in Luxembourg the launch of their fund. And that is, in fact, an acceptable project submission. If you actually launch a regulated fund during the class as your class project and fundraise it for it in Luxembourg, you will probably get full marks on that assignment. And so it's a group of people that tend to be doing very hands-on, practical work. They want to get out into the field and do things. A lot of them change careers. A lot of them use it to become more advanced in their actual career or to become the person in their company that knows about cryptocurrency and blockchain. It is a winning career strategy to be that person. The single most comfortable piece of advice I can say today is that I get calls with great regularity from very big, very famous companies from around the world, and they want graduates, and we don't have enough of them. I cannot say this is true across most of our other degree programs, right? And they call, and when I say company, it's like IBM and Accenture, and they say, oh, how many people do you need? I say, I don't know, like 500. It's like, great, we can give you 3. They're like, can you make more? And I'm trying now to make more so that can get you all like exciting career. Like, I mean, I know many of you have exciting careers, but even more exciting careers. And I note this in the professions as well. I'll talk about an example we've had in Cyprus. And Cyprus, as you know, has a huge accounting profession, right? Like we're #1 per capita in the world in chartered or certified accountants, right? Like 1 of every 100 men, women, children, old people, infants in Cyprus is a chartered accountant. And the University of Nicosia has educated at least half of them, so we know them all very well, and they're good friends of ours. And as our CFO mentioned in one of the other panels, when we said we're accepting Bitcoin from tuition, they all had a panic attack and wondered if we could get a clean audit, and well, they tried to save us from ourselves, this whole type of thing. And in 2013, I told them you should come train your folks for cryptocurrency because there's going to be a lot of business coming, and they said, you're crazy. And we told them again in 2014, and they said, yeah, you guys are crazy. In 2015, they said, okay, that's cute. In 2016, they said, yeah, I got it. This guy's in Nicosia. And then what happened in 2017? Hundreds of clients called them and wanted help with cryptocurrency, and of course, they had no people ready to serve them. And so then they called them, we need people. I said, you had to start like 2 years ago. Like, you can't start now. We can't just bake them tomorrow, right? So if you're in a more senior position at your firm and you're not the person who's going to come do the masters, you should send some of your more junior people, because cryptocurrency and blockchain is not going away. And we speak to a lot of folks in the industry, and I would still say in professional services, accountants and lawyers and other professional services still don't really know what they're talking about. I mean, as a first approximation, and aren't in a position to deliver good, solid advice across the board. And there are individual partners, right? Like the institutions as a whole aren't well set up, and the ones that get set up faster will win business and be in a position to be leaders in this field. I mean, it is the single, there are 2 deeply under-resourced professions in the world, and one is machine learning and data science, and the second is blockchain. And the salaries are at about the same, and there's just a massive supply-demand imbalance. So anyone who's thinking about doing the full master's program, I think it's a great option. You do 1 class at a time, you can do it while you're working, and it's been a super experience for us and the students. We have done some shorter professional training certificates over the years. We're going to put a lot more emphasis on that this coming year, because for many people, particularly professionals, the full master's might be too big of a commitment. And so we have some professional certificates now that are effectively 3 courses in the master's, and if you complete those, you get a certificate from the University of Nicosia, and you can also go on and complete the master's program. But we'll also be rolling out some shorter form, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, primarily online, sometimes in person. We did an interesting summer school with UCL about a month ago in Limassol. I don't know why it was a summer school, it was in October, but yeah, in Cyprus that's summer. So I think that was an interesting experience. So we're going to be doing a lot more experimenting this year with different formats, different modalities, and we're open to both ideas. If you say, you know, I have a bunch of colleagues or friends in a certain industry and we'd really like to know how blockchain applies to X, or what do you think about cryptocurrency taxation, give us a call and we can discuss. Is there something that we have? Is there something we could create? Is there something we could do together? By the way, I've spoken to a couple of folks in this room who I think would make good instructors for some of these professional programs. And if you think you could be a good instructor on this topic, also reach out to us, because we have the same problem. Our limiting factor for training lots of people is having trained people to help train lots of people. So if you have an expertise in a specialized area of cryptocurrency and blockchain, we might need you to help us train other people. So please reach out to the team. I mentioned this at the beginning. I'm going to mention it now again. We're also going to put a little bit more emphasis on our chapters this year. We've tested it in New York. We've tested it in Nicosia. We're starting to get a feeling of how it works. What is a chapter? It's whatever you want it to be. What we ask you to do is find a host. A host could be a company. A host could be a university. A host could be a community center. And have a minimum of 8 people. And beyond that, we will give a technological platform to help support the chapter, manage the chapter. We will help reach out to people in our alumni network in the area and say that the chapter is operating. We have some procedures. You elect a president, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer. And so, you know, that's why 8 is the number. You have 4 officers and then 4 subjects to rule over. So you have to have at least 1 subject for each officer to rule over, right? And then beyond that, whatever the chapter does is what they're interested in. And so it could be a general blockchain, it could be financial services oriented, it could be community service oriented, it could be all of the above, it could be something that we have no idea what it is. And we can give some back-end technological support, some coordination support, but what I really hope we can give is actually network support, so that as we see interesting things happening across the world, we can help put you in touch with other people we know doing similar or complementary interesting things around the world. This was an idea that came out of the last Decentralized, and certain people said, well, this was great, and sure, I'll come next year, but what do we do between now and next year? I don't want to do a master's. I've graduated from the master's, and now what? Like, how do we see you between now and next year? And I think the answer is helping create a mechanism where everyone can see each other and work with each other and continue some of these conversations that are happening here on an ongoing basis. So if you want to help found a chapter, please speak to Irini. I would hope by next year, this time, where you're not talking about 2 chapters, but maybe 20 or 25, and then we'll go from there. Next year, we will be having at least one additional, at least a Decentralized 2019, and possibly, and I'm sorry to be coy, but it involves another organization, so I can't say anything until I know exactly how it's going to happen. Possibly an additional conference, or possibly combined. possibly in Athens, possibly in Cyprus, possibly in both. And that's really not very clear, except it will be in Cyprus or Athens. It will be one or two. It will for sure be a decentralized, and it might also involve another organization that you have heard of, but we haven't finalized arrangements yet. So I would expect in the next month or so, we will know what we're doing in 2019. We will let you know what we're doing in 2019. I think we had a solid first start last year in Limassol. I think we did a good step forward this year, both in terms of number of speakers, quality of speakers, number of participants, quality of participants. You guys are all great. And so next year, in the spirit of continuous improvement, we'd like to do even better. And so once we know exactly what we're doing when, we're going to reach out to many of you and say, please come and be on a panel and speak, and you were great. And also, if you'd like to help sponsor something, if you're a corporate entity, your help is appreciated, because we give a lot of the corporate money that comes in helps us give free tickets to students and faculty who can't come otherwise. We also subsidize from the university. This is not a moneymaker for us. It's a way to get people together. And so the more corporate sponsorship we have, the more academics and students that wouldn't otherwise have the chance to come here we can bring. And so your contribution is very much appreciated, and it helps build the ecosystem that is, of course, going to help you over time. So once we know when and where we're doing this, please reach out to us. We'd like to get even better next year. The earlier you reach out to us, the earlier we know who's speaking, the earlier know who will be help us support the conference, the better job we can do planning it, and then Decentralized 2019 will be even more effective and good for everyone, and most of all, of course, you. These are our logistical plans. Beyond that, I'll just say the following. I'm always harassing all of our team to think bigger and move faster, because I think we're doing things that are generally in the right direction for humanity, and if so, the faster we do them and the more we do them and the better we do them, the more of a positive impact we will have. I would encourage all of you to think about the same. Take some risk, get things deployed, get things moving into action and see what happens, because certain ideas I keep hearing and seeing year after year and discussed year after year, and nothing much actually happens. And whereas be better to make a smaller, the minimum viable product version of it, and get it out and get it into the field. You don't know anything until you hit the field. You don't know anything until you try. We had this exact experience with our certificate issuance platform. We knew that a public blockchain is a great place to validate and store a certificate. It wasn't until we actually started doing it that we discovered all the difficulties, all the problems. For example, our registrar said, well, once in a while, we need to revoke or change a diploma. And so now you have this very problematic scenario. I mean, my initial reaction was, oh, right, because this is immutable blockchain and revocable diplomas. And I had a day or two when I said, oh, is this journey just over here, and these two things don't belong together? And we had an amazing set of discussions among some of our faculty, and we found a solution. I think a very good solution. We published a paper last year that I still think is the best paper on revocability on an immutable blockchain. Seven different ways you can think of revocability while the underlying blockchain stays immutable, because it is immutable and you can't do anything about that piece. And I think we came up with a very practical solution, and the only reason that happened is because we started trying things and doing things when it still seemed a little bit scary. I mean, the registrar, I don't know the registrar was exactly happy when we told them about this, right? So we want to take your diplomas and put them on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? I mean, they didn't exactly object, but they weren't exactly happy. They were concerned. And the process of getting them comfortable enough that we could do it was where all the real work happened. Because otherwise, yeah, it makes sense, you can put it on the blockchain. But until you actually have to do it, until you actually have to solve the real life problems of how do you get 3,000 electronic diplomas to 3,000 students, knowing that some student is going to call you the next day and say, I really want this name on my diploma. And you've now just published it irrevocably in Bitcoin blockchain forever, and it's wrong, right? That's where it's interesting. And I think we have one of our colleagues at the British University in Dubai, and they used the solution in December 2017, and they were the second university to publish all their diplomas on the blockchain, and that was pretty exciting. And we've had some other universities and other organizations who have asked if they can test it, and if you'd like to test this with us, it's open source, and it's free, and we think it's a really neat solution, and we're very happy for other partners to come and give it a shot and see what we learn together, because that's ultimately how we're going to push this field forward, by doing things and learning them and then coming and bringing them back into the classroom and writing papers about them and letting people know what, in fact, we're doing. So let's push forward. It's for sure not going away. These solutions will come, and they will come not because the technology is there. What's needed are the people and the systems and the human systems to allow the technology to get deployed, right? And when I say the technology is there, will there be things that will be improved along the way? Yes, of course, but that's not the problem. The problem, there are dozens of things that could be done now that are not being done now, while we worry about things that may or may not be done now, but aren't today's problem. You know, I had who here, this was discussed, it was discussed implicitly earlier today. Who here knows about the scaling debate last year in Bitcoin? Okay. So this was like last year's most common question to me in class. Oh my God, what do you think about the scaling debate? What's going to happen? Should it be this way or that way? Should we do it at a base layer or a different layer? Is Bitcoin doomed? It can't scale, right? You see all these articles in Wired that says Bitcoin can't scale, the crisis at Bitcoin. And I said, I am old enough and I've been around the block enough to not have to worry about this. Because new technologies do not fail because people want to use them. We went through this whole cycle with the internet. I can't remember how many times the internet was going to fail because it just couldn't scale. There were too many emails, then there were too many viruses, then people wanted to watch too many videos online. This was like constantly in the 90s. And that's an anti-metric. When people are saying the problem with your technology is too many people want to use it, that is a very, very good sign. Technologies fail because nobody wants to use them. When things have no usage, that's when they fail. When many people want to come use your technology, there will be a solution. I don't know. I had an opinion which one it was going to be, but it was irrelevant. What I was sure is once there is this economic incentive from a lot of users, very smart engineers will figure out how to solve the problem and to scale and to go to the next level and the next level, which is effectively what's happening and what is going to continue to happen. So for this to become reality, we have to push usage, we have to get things into the field, we have to get people using it. And I guess I should put my asterisks. Yes, I mean, don't go do blatantly illegal securities fundraising, which was happening last year, right? There's dozens of usage cases where you can take risk that are not financially oriented, right? So I'm not saying take risk on ICOs, I'm not saying take risks on doing raising money with unregistered securities. I guess in a blockchain conference I have to say that. But in the technical side, on the non-financial side, people are not taking enough risk. Right? There was a lot of risk being taken in fundraising that was regulatory risk, but there has not been enough risk, and I believe, taken operationally. I hear ideas that we're going to use blockchains to do X that I heard 5 years ago. And we're still here, and theoretically blockchains can do X, but someone has to actually start doing it. So somewhere in this room, someone's going to do very important things, and hopefully we will hear about it soon. And if it's one of our alums, that's very exciting. And if it's one of our friends, it's also very exciting. So we are exactly at the end point. Cocktails start now. So we are done harassing you about blockchains. Thank you all very much.